Marinakis is fuming. Crystal Palace are linked to Steve Cooper. And another Newcastle player may be coming to Nottingham Forest. Welcome to your Forest News. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Hope you're well, and welcome to your latest Nottingham Forest news. In today's video, we'll be covering off the big stories as things are getting heated at the City ground. We'll be talking about Marinakis, Steve Cooper, and yet another Newcastle reject that may be on his way to Nottingham Forest. As always, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new. And tonight we'll be on at 6 p.m. across on our good friends Football Heritage with Sava and the boys talking all things football. I'll leave a link for it down below. Make sure you come join us and back the Forest Corner while we're on their channel. All right, let's jump into this, guys. And I think we're going to need to kick off with this Steve Cooper story. Okay, so unless you've been asleep for the last 3 days, obviously the pressure is ramping on Steve Cooper. After that Brighton result, it's come out and Marinakis is apparently not too happy with what he's seeing. And who can blame him? 1 win in 9, £250 million spent, 11 points dropped from winning positions, and a football identity that still for me isn't quite there. Whether or not you believe the rumours, whether or not you think Steve Cooper is under pressure, there is no smoke without fire. And following on from the Brighton game, there has been more and more rumours about his position. But what you can see with the media is they're taking very small steps in this. Why? Because they got burnt twice last season. Once after the Leicester game and again after the Leeds game towards the end of the season. So they are approaching this one with caution. Now, how true is this pressure? Well, the answer is quite simple. Any manager who loses 3 or 4 games or has 1 win in 10, 9, whatever it is in the Premier League is going to be under pressure. It's a results business, and that's always the case. And there's been no manager sacking, but it feels like the whole manager merry-go-round is starting to bubble up because Steve Cooper isn't alone. You got sitting bottom at Sheffield United in big trouble. You got companies starting to come under pressure. You've even got Roy Hodgson annoying the Palace fans, as we saw last night on Beat the Drop. If you haven't seen that episode, you got to check out what Rich had to say. So there is plenty of pressure bubbling and building in the Premier League manager circle. But this link came out yesterday from Alex Crook from TalkSport. Now think of him what you may, and I have a very low opinion of what he says because he has been wrong so many times. He tweeted out saying that Palace are interested in Steve Cooper if they were to get rid of Roy Hodgson and if Steve Cooper was to leave Nottingham Forest. There's a lot of ifs in that sentence, and the likelihood of all those scenarios falling into place is very slim in my opinion. But he was on TalkSport today as well saying that Marinakis is annoyed with the results, with the performances. It's also stated that he's not likely to sack him. It's not exactly like, you know, he's got the noose around his neck already, but it may depend on what happens this weekend against Everton. And if that were to happen, then what he's claiming is that that could accelerate Roy Hodgson's exit out of Palace and Steve Cooper in through the door. Look, to me, whatever Alex Crook says, I always take it with not just a pinch of salt, like a kilo of salt. Where I do agree with him is that Cooper is definitely under pressure for his job. Is Everton the be-all and end-all? I'm still not completely convinced. The main reason being is Forest have 3 games in a week. Let's just say the unthinkable happens and we lose to Everton at the weekend. We have Fulham midweek and then another game the following weekend. It's very, very tight to get a manager out into the training ground, start to, develop his play, his procedures, etc. All of that in the space of 3 games. But what could happen is that, let's just say Cooper and all this was true and he was to go after the game on Saturday if we were to lose, then you may see Stephen Reid step back in and be caretaker manager, and that may roll on for a week or so until they appoint whoever it may be. Now, The other question is, if he's going, what are the rumours about who's coming in? You always hear this from certain segments of the fan base. Well, if he's going, who do people want in? Well, at the moment, if you believe the speculation and the links in the media, it's Lopetegui that seems to be in the driving seat. Apparently, there are a few major fans of him within the hierarchy at Nottingham Forest. But let me reiterate, the stories are saying that no one is quite ready yet to pull the trigger on Steve Cooper. A win against Everton, a win against Fulham midweek, and everything returns back to normal and everyone is happy again. But this is football and we're just going to have to see how it plays out. But get your thoughts on it. As always, this channel is open to everyone's opinion, whatever side of the debate or wherever you may sit, you are welcome to have your opinions. Get them in the comments down below. All right, guys, let's move on to our second story, and that is Forest's continued hunt for more attacking players. And when Forest are struggling, where do they look to? And of course, where other than Newcastle? And do they look to sniper Newcastle's best players? No, they look to sniper their backup boys who are getting on a bit, who can't get into the Newcastle team, and no doubt will ask for like 50 million for these players. Who are we talking about here? We're talking about Jacob Murphy, the right winger at Newcastle, 28 years old. I think he's been there since like 2017. He's played 133 games, 9 goals for them, and 12 assists. I was actually surprised he's been there that long. Had an okay season last year. He's had a few assists this year and a couple of goals, I believe, so far. He's not a bad player. He is. He's decent. But I'll tell you straight, guys, I never, ever, ever want Forest to deal with Newcastle again. I don't care right now if we were being linked to Bruno Guimaraes. I wouldn't want him. After Shelvey and Chris Wood, I'm done with deals with Newcastle. I really am. It's like dealing with the goddamn devil. And I have no interest in any of their players at all coming to Nottingham Forest. And especially with their backup players on top of that. Could he get into the Forest team? Yeah, probably. We are lacking in terms of wingers right now. I understand the link, but it still cuts too deep from what happened last year. I'd rather have Dennis back. I honestly would. Would cost us no money, and we wouldn't have to give Newcastle any more money. But that's just my opinion on him. I do think he's a decent player. I think he does have potential, even at the ripe old age of 28. But I just don't want to deal with Newcastle United ever again. But what do you guys think? Alrighty then, guys, let's move on to our third story, and that is from our fearless leader, the Greek father Marinakis, and he is pissed. Why? Because he's been wanting a set-piece coach at Nottingham Forest since the end of last season. And it kind of endears me to him. And it makes me feel that maybe we're just not the ones who have been saying it forever. That we can't take set pieces. In fact, Forest have the second worst dead ball record in the Premier League, which in itself is quite embarrassing because we do have a lot of tall players and a lot of players that can header the ball quite well as well. And it has really annoyed Marinakis. Look, Forest nearly did sign the former Spurs guy who was called Gianni Vio, but that fell through. He used to work under Antonio Conte. And there's been talks that Forest have been interviewing people over the last 72 to 48 hours to get this position filled. But how the hell have we gone this far into the season and not had a set piece coach? And it just shows on the pitch. I think it kind of shows that everything we've been saying about the terribleness of our free kicks, our corners, our dead ball situations, Marinakis is vindicating it all because he's agreeing with exactly what we're saying. I mean, the last time I remember a set piece routine being taken by Forest was the opening day of last season against Newcastle. And the less said about that one, the better. So this looks like a position that's being addressed, rightly so. I'm fully behind Marinakis on this one, and I fully understand his frustration. What I don't know, though, is where he's aiming that frustration. Who did he appoint to be in charge of this recruitment? Who should have done this? And is someone's head going to roll because of it? That we will find out, no doubt, over the next coming days when hopefully this appointment gets done and they can start working on actually producing some decent dead balls into the penalty area of the opposition. But yeah, Marinakis annoyed about that. Marinakis also getting itchy about what's going on with Steve Cooper, and Newcastle players being linked with Forest. This really feels like deja vu all over again from last season. Rinse and repeat with Nottingham Forest. But it's always an interesting talking point. Get your thoughts in down below on everything we've covered today. Make sure you join us at 6 p.m. over on Football Heritage. The link for that will be in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you're new. Thank you again for getting us to 15,000 subscribers. Crazy numbers, all because of you. We'll see you tonight at 6. Come on, you Reds.